Please be advised that the information presented herein is for educational purposes only. It is strongly recommended that listeners should seek guidance from qualified paid professionals of their choosing before acting upon any information or materials discussed. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Real Estate News Unpacked, where we unpack the latest and greatest of the news for your listening pleasure in very simple terms. My name is Marcel. I am your mortgage guy, all things financing, alongside Ronald, your Michelin 5-star multiplex design, all things multiplex designing. Ronald, how's it going? What's going on today? What are we going to talk about?
Yeah, today is going to be a really interesting day. As actually, lots happening in the news, but in particular, we want to focus in on the BCH. Lots of acronyms going to be pushing around today. This is not
What is the BCH?
Build Canada Homes. We need homes. We need homes.
We need homes. Okay, so this is Mark Carney's Liberals' new plan, the most ambitious plan since World War II, since the Second World War. Let's dive into this. So this plan, I'll give you a little intro, and then Ron, maybe you jump in and tell us a bit more about what this actually is, and then we'll jump into some of the details and go through. But this is a great unpack here. This summarized document. So basically, we're obviously in a massive housing crisis, and since the Second World War, we've been basically facing this, right? Very similar to today. So in response, back then, the government built tens of thousands of homes, and some of you may be familiar with what is it called, the strawberry home, that you see in certain neighborhoods today, the Victoria houses and the strawberry box houses.
That's right.
Those were all prefabricated during the after the Second World War.
That's right.
And in that period of time, they created something similar to like what they're creating now. It was called the War Housing Limited, WHL. And that was the government's initiative to build all these Victoria houses and strawberry box houses. And they were also prefabricated and assembled in some cases in as little as 36 hours. So we see this standardization, this catalog approach to home design, and rapid deployment is what solved things back then. And then what happened was they layered on CMHC, which came in around 1947. And CMHC was the sort of money engine to support this housing, allowing people to buy housing supported through the means of the CMHC mechanism. So these assets were eventually sold to private entities. And this is how things started to change and created a middle class. And now, and that's where people had home ownership and started to build wealth and stuff around home ownership. So that was the initiative back then. And for all intents and purposes, it sounds very similar to what's happening right now with this new initiative, BCH. Ron, tell us about BCH. What is BCH?
Yeah, Grace, this almost seems familiar. Like I remember, there was a world war and now we're in a trade war, and it seems like we're in the same situation where there's a great need for housing. And, it's really interesting to see that Canada is once again Canada strong and, coming out with some new policies that will essentially help to build Canada again. And no pun intended, this is literally is build Canada homes. Like this is as straightforward as it can get, right? You can't mix words here. It's like this whole entity
no creativity on the name. No creativity on the name. Just
no creativity.
Canada homes. Right?
This is what we're about to do. We're about to build Canada homes again. Maybe that's what I should have put. Build Canada homes again, because we have done this in the past, right? To your point, as you just mentioned.
And for all intents and purposes, before you describe this very much seems like Big Brother stepping in and just kind of saying, okay, enough is enough. Like, we've been We've been playing around and toying around with, ones and twosies stuff here. Yeah, we're just going to come in and get this done now.
Oh yeah. Well, we were going to come in and layer in some heavy hitting policies and so forth. And by the way, this is still not finalized. It's still in the process, but you can see where it's going. And Build Canada Homes was part of the Liberal government platform that Mark Carney ran on. And this is going to be an entity that is created to build homes. And these homes is essentially going to be funded and built by this government. And two particular pillars of this is financing, building faster, and essentially ensuring that there is an affordability sort of aspect to the things that are being funded and built. So, and we'll jump more into that sort of conversation there. But one of the things that I really want to point out here is you can see is that key functions is to build affordable home at scale, right? This is just what the government is about to do here. They're going to build housing at scale and basically catalyzing a new housing industry. So what does that really mean? What does that mean, Master? Catalyzing a new housing industry?
The new housing industry they're going to catalyze is the modern methods of construction. And they're going to create the demand to help drive that entire industry. And that is really the future of construction being faster, better, cheaper is the intent there. So this is a massive play. This is a modernization play. This is a play on other countries have done this already. We're always usually a little bit behind the eight ball. But this is kind of this is playing catch up in terms of that creating that industry and driving that industry at scale.
So does this mean like our traditional framing type projects and builders, are they now going to go out of business or have to retool their whole operation and workforce for this type of because you always say, Marcel, this is I can probably say, you say this on every recording, follow the money, right? So what's going to happen? We're no longer going to see stick frames at Home Depot. We're just going to see boxes, right? There'll be no more studs in Home Depot, right?
No more wood
frame. It's like you just go in there and you basically walk out with a house on your back, right?
People still need to build fences and stuff, but
right.
For all intents and purposes, that's a really good question. I don't know entirely what will happen. I think my thesis on that is, like any industry, when things change and modernize, we saw this in the industrial era, and now we're going through this kind of whole, digital 2.0, AI era. People will have to upskill, change, retool. I see this as a massive opportunity actually for stick frame builders. They understand construction. There will be opportunities where, and we saw this with, Promise Robotics, right? They're creating a factory as a service. They are servicing the great stick home builder that now wants to move to these modern methods of construction with a factory as a service business model. I think we'll see more of that. I think we'll see the new smaller manufacturer wear two hats. I think they'll wear the hat of the traditional builder, and I think they'll wear the hat of a developer actually. And they'll, because they can, they'll start to develop their own projects. Not just fee for service building for other people.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think you'll start to see some of that, and this whole plan here will really drive that, right? Because it'll fuel all these little local manufacturers with enough business that they can now kind of move at scale, expand their operations. Hopefully there's some tax. I always talk about this. I have a tax incentive, right? That gets kind of unlocked for investment so
Oh,
people
geez, you're
keep their
jumping ahead,
dollars
man.
here.
You're jumping ahead here. Like,
I'm jumping
let the
ahead here, right?
report talk. Let the
Yeah.
report talk. But you
Yeah.
know,
So
you're,
let's jump
yeah,
back
yeah,
into the report.
you're actually. But I mean, look, you know, we have obviously was pre-chatting before this, and you know, obviously there's a lot happening here. But to your point, traditional framing, carpentry is not going anywhere, right? Like masons, they aren't going to go anywhere. Like this is all stuff that's still going to be a part of the construction industry. The only thing that's really changing here is like there's going to be more money being funneled into new innovative ways of building homes. And I guess maybe one of the biggest question mark is like, is the federal government going to be a developer? Right? Like, how does that work? You know?
Yeah, well, it says here, like
Yeah.
at the top, right? So we're kind of the top right hand here. BCH will act as a developer to build affordable housing at scale, including on public lands. It will develop and manage projects and partner with builders for construction. Um, this is still not entirely clear. Whether they're playing the role of a true developer, or are they the role more of a facilitator, or is it both, right? Depending on the project.
Oh yeah. Or maybe is it a
Right.
like a partnership, P3s, right? Like I
like
mean
like a P3 partnership.
P3
That's kind of what this is
exactly.
sounding like.
Yeah.
I think the key thing to note is this is only for non-market housing. Like this is only supporting not so the private sector and the private market is business as per usual. I think it'll get the kind of the residual benefit of all this money flowing into industrialized construction, and that will help further fuel the private sector. But this here is only for non-market housing, so affordable.
Well, I can see how a lot of people are going to frown on this as well. Like, and I say a lot of people, some industry associations and some advocates, because we have seen the federal government as a whole, take on projects and they have gone south. They have just not worked out well. And we have seen huge budget overruns, huge time overruns. We have seen quality really wane, and you know there's just huge operational costs ongoing. So these are all things that you never want to hear have increased when you're doing development, and
Yeah.
the government is well known to show that they're incapable of doing this. And whether there's going to be a culture shift here, whether they're going to bring on more private like knowledge and expertise to really drive these projects is still unknown, because it's still unknown, right?
Yeah. Let's continue on, Ron, and there's lots to unpack here. So let's continue on.
Yeah, for
with
sure.
our So the BCH will also catalyze the housing industry, which we talked about, to the tune of 25 billion in debt financing and 1 billion in equity financing to innovate prefab, otherwise known as modern methods of construction. So,
Lot of
and
money.
this is really to help to increase the demand by, like, here are the bulk orders, right? So what will be interesting, Ron, is how those bulk orders get distributed. And will these all go to the largest manufacturers? So, like, I think you mentioned Mattamy Homes is starting their own factory. Like, will all of this new productivity go to these larger and largest manufacturers?
Yeah.
Or will some of these smaller local manufacturers, will they all kind of share in that pie? So here you get, whatever, enough units to hit your capacity. You get enough units to hit your capacity. You over there, you get enough units. You deliver those. This will be interesting as to how it's distributed amongst the few or the many.
That's
benefits?
really really interesting, and that's actually something that I just thought. And in fact, when you look at Mattamy Homes as a builder, they're really just a land. They assemble land and they install infrastructure, and then essentially they have builders that actually build these things. They sub these things out. but now that they're actually going to be operating, I don't know what that means, but like they're operating their own factory. So we're using this as an example, not to say that there's some sort of known collaboration between the government and this particular builder. But in this case here, where Madame Homes, let's say, has a huge swatch of land and they're putting development together, to your question, maybe there's a place where it is they are doing the exact same thing, where it is they're actually getting these mass contracts and they're actually subbing it out to smaller facilities to get the volume, because there's only so much, doesn't matter how big your operation is, right?
Right.
That you can
Yeah.
produce at any rate.
Yeah.
So,
No, I agree with you. I think this could be a really good news story for the many
For the many,
versus
yeah.
the few
Yeah, that's
on
right.
the manufacturing side.
That's correct. Yeah.
On the builder execution and builder developer side and whoever's providing the guarantees and all that, I think that'll be the few. That'll be the usual suspects that are there, and that's just by virtue of given the size of these projects, right?
That's right.
It's not going to be your ones and twos, the missing middle developer.
No, unfortunately, I
on
mightn't get
these.
cut into that. Like, no, not your sixplexes. This is going to be,
Yeah.
and I think this is mostly geared towards, while this is saying affordable, which is still a question mark to your point about affordable versus attainable. I can see this being really geared to like large infill, missing middle type projects, like mid-rise buildings, high-rise buildings, and again, the technology would need to be developed and innovated to the point where developers feel comfortable building high-rise buildings out in a modular format. Like, what does
Yeah,
that
yeah.
look like? Like nobody
Yeah.
knows as yet, right?
Yeah, right now
Yeah.
the way it reads, if you're talking modular, you're more mid scale. You're smaller and mid scale.
That's right.
Kind of size project. So
And if you are mid-scale, then you would really have to make sure and refine your process so that you can really prove that you're capable of delivering on these in an efficient manner. But bulk order is going to be the way of the future, because the only how like innovative means of construction can actually become the mainstream, it have to be able to scale, and the only how it's going to scale, there has to be big orders on the table, right? For big developments, no one's going to fund these. Like, the government is not, I don't believe anyway, going to fund developments that are small in scale. In fact, I think there was one other report that says it's 300 plus units. Like, this is kind of the baseline, right?
Yeah, in this report, it gives an example of 300 plus units, right? So
Yeah.
kind of moving on here, we've got BCH will also provide 10 billion in low cost financing and capital to affordable home builders.
How about that?
4 billion will go towards long-term fixed rate financing. 6 billion will go towards rapid building, deeply affordable housing, supportive, Indigenous, and another 2 billion will go to student and seniors. So we've got so they're also moving the funding avenue, and this looks like it's going to come in the form of capital financing, debt financing, as well as equity and all types of different financing and funding vehicles to move the needle on this scale of development. So
And I know you're really big on modular in particular, even more so than myself. I know you have done a number of sort of workshops and reports, collaborated on reports, and one of the main things is the gap, right? There's a financing or funding gap between fabrication plant and actually site. Like,
And
so
on
so
site,
like what do you think is going to happen here? Like, what do you
mean-
think
I
could be
mean, it's-
proposed here?
yeah, it's not clear here, but I would imagine, the people in the room would. This is a well-known issue. It's been solved in other places, in places like the UK. I would imagine that's on the table as part of this funding and capital stack. And I would imagine there's probably some, insurance piece as well. That's
for sure.
going to backstop that kind of offsite kind of what I call tier 1 versus tier 2 construction. So I would imagine that's on the table and that's being looked at for the unlock here. For
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
definitely.
Because there's somebody has to get paid to fabricate these things, and you can't expect someone to run a facility on, just wait until I get to site, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of upfront capital that goes into this modern methods of construction, right? So that's one of the current deterrents from the methodology, right?
Among
Lots of
others, I
additional,
might say, but
among others,
yeah, of
among
course, of
others.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Now,
you see,
now the one thing, just before we move on,
yeah,
just in
let's hear.
relation to that point, there is like, there's some things that this report doesn't really talk about that I think they're going to have to address. And as you know, I was part of a report that the University of New Brunswick did and the Natural Resources of Canada
Yeah, let's hear about
on offsite construction and kind of some of the issues. And one of the things they're going to really have to address, and they don't talk about it here, is they're going to have to address really like what happens to the perception, right? So with all this money pouring into modern methods of construction and offsite, is the perception of modern methods now going to be looked upon as, ooh, it's affordable housing, it's lower end quality, like I don't want that for my house. Or if a house in the private market gets delivered now with modern methods, is it going to have that kind of overarching shadow of being a lesser quality product? So there's a massive public perception thing that or address that the government has to think about with this plan here.
Yeah,
Right.
I do agree. In fact, I'll say it's not only a private matter that you're talking about. So there's an educational. There has to be a lot of education and awareness about how these things are built. But I also think, to your point, even professionally, like when you look at cities that are putting together, let's say, these pre-approved design catalogs and so forth, a lot of times they're putting together boxes. And it seems less bespoke. It seems less tailored. It seems less like a house. And I feel that's what it is. A lot of people are like, whoa, hold on. Like, is that just a box? Right? So they're going to really have to try to make people comfortable knowing like it's not just a box. And they also have to figure out how to make it more customizable, because you don't, look, to your point, is like we everybody knows about the 1950s raised bungalow. You talked about what did they call it? The strawberry house. It actually looks
strawberry. Yeah.
No, you know what? It actually looks like it came right out of Smurfs, man. Like you go to some of those neighborhoods, you see those little houses. Yeah. But the reality is that solved the problem.
Box house. Yeah.
But listen, you can't solve the problem the same way you solved it, 75 years ago, right? Like we got to come up with a slightly more innovative approach, and we can't just put boxes there for the next 50 years. And by the way, those houses are still standing. I was just in Hamilton last week in a community where the entire community was laid, like all the roads had those houses all the way across, right? So in this era now, in this trade era, I'll call it, not World War era, but this trade war era, I would say that I would like to see solutions where it is homes don't look the same. Like there's optionality, there's more flexibility in the design.
Agreed. 100%. I think this is where you really have to lean into designers, and designers have to really help drive this product, right? Like these need to be well designed homes. Like I even I'm critical of even the 4+1s that are going up in neighborhoods, right? Like when you and I talk, like these rectangles and with windows that are going up, versus like something that actually looks like a home. And if you were to walk by and you weren't the average Joe that couldn't count how many hydrometers are on the side of don't notice that kind of stuff, like you and I do, should look like a home, right? But in fact it's it may be cut into 4 units or whatever. So I think I agree 100%. Design is going to be critical to the delivery, especially at this scale. It's a lot of housing.
Well, and that's where the conundrum is, because when you're trying to do things at scale, you need something that's repeatable.
Yeah.
And especially when you start talking about fabrication plants, you're moving away from designers, and now you're really hiring someone that's a manager, like someone that knows how to manage a production line. And production happens best when it's a line that's repeatable. So there's a high likelihood that we will not see any type of bespoke products coming out. And if that's the case, then it will certainly affect the cost efficiency that could be coming
Yeah.
out of this, right?
The other thing is like, do you now like where these get delivered and get built? Does that now create like a ghettoization of a particular area, right?
Jeez, we
With
will
like,
coin that. I'll take ghettoization. Let's
right? Like with like a row of strawberry houses, right?
yeah. Absolutely.
As an example, right?
That's
Like so,
standardization, yeah.
yeah. So lots to be we're throwing the hard questions. We don't know the answers
We
to
don't know
these
the
things. I
answers,
think
no.
there's lots to be unpacked here. There's some unintended consequences of some of this stuff with the general economy. So continuing on, we will introduce a tax incentive.
Taxes, yes.
And this is they make reference to what was originally introduced in 1970, which spurred tens of thousands of rental units that were known as MURBs, multi-unit residential buildings.
So wait, Marcel, let me interject here. So this is not like your GST, HST rebates here. This is not what this is. This is not the taxes they're talking about.
No.
What taxes are they talking about?
This looks like some sort of incentive, federal incentive program that was similar to MURBs. The MURBs happened in the 70s and 80s, designed to like once again stimulate construction of rental housing during a period of low supply, right? So that's what this looks like. So MURBs had stuff that attracted private capital, engaged, modern methods of purpose-built rentals. They had tax write-off incentives that were straightforward, very easy for an investor to make sense of, and it spurred a lot of this purpose-built rental that you see today, right? Now the cons of that, I don't want to go too offline here, but one of the main kind of cons or of the MURBs were like abuse of like these tax shelters, right? They were so good that they started to get abused by some investors. The affordability wasn't guaranteed, so eventually you can change those back over to market rents. This seems different. This seems like permanent affordability. There was a short-term supply bump with MURBs, so it boosted. That was one of the cons. It boosted like a lot of the product kind of into the market, and that's kind of like what we're seeing right now. We've talked about the pendulum that's swung, right? And we've seen massive rental coming in. So what does that mean? That can drive down your rents, right?
That's correct.
Even if you're on the private sector side, right? So like this influx of affordable could drive down rents for those on the private side. So and then there was quality concerns. So this is kind of what this looks like. It looks like some sort of tax incentive, and this is very this tax incentive structure for building is very common in the US as well. So this is interesting. I'd love to see more about what that actually will be, but if it's anything around tax, me and tax, right? Like tax is horrible here, right?
If it worked in the 1950s, it can work in 2025, right? Like
hopefully
hopefully it can work, right? So this is great, and I can see like they're really moving forward here with also some kind of, I guess, some new structure in affordable housing units by reducing tax liability on basically multi-purpose rental when you sell them. So this is not only in like tax incentives that's coming out of just tax rebates or like your goods and services taxes. This looks to me like your capital gains as well. Like there's some
exactly, that last point there highlighted all in yellow. And this is where the missing middle developer builder can play in this can play their role, right? So all those what this looks like here is all the buildings that you're designing right now, Ron, and developers are building and I'm financing can now be sold to a nonprofit operator, a land trust, right? Or some sort of nonprofit acquisition fund with a, as you mentioned, with a like a tax deferral, some sort of tax deferral, as long as it's reinvested back into purpose-built rental housing. So that's a great strategy for the DevCo, HoldCo developer, small developer strategy. You go buy the house, buy the land, build the building with your DevCo, roll it into your HoldCo, and then it can sell it to, or even before rolling into HoldCo, you can just sell. Yeah, you can sell it directly to one of these nonprofit organizations. Realize your profit without tax.
And do it again.
And go again. So this is like almost like, you know what this is? This is a new burr. This could be a new burr.
This is the new age burr. That's right.
This is the new age burr. This is the age of AI burr. That's what this could be. From what we just read there, that's what comes to mind, and
that's right.
That's what this sounds
like. That's actually really, that's, I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like this is a burr. It is a burr, and it's just it's reimagining what a burr would look like at scale, I would say, because now you can really make this a business.
You can go.
Yeah,
you can go. Yeah, because remember, now the buyer, those nonprofit organizations they'll have the money to buy the property from you, right? Yeah. Whereas now they don't, so they're not even a contingent. Before we move off this, what's a burr? Just for those that don't understand, using acronyms. That's good. So real estate is so bad with using all these acronyms.
I know, right? There's all these acronyms, but a burr is a very simple acronym. In fact, it might seem odd, right? But it's a buy, B. R is to renovate. R is to rent. And R is to refinance. And yet you can still have another R in there to repeat. Right, so a lot of
rinse and repeat. You can have two more. You can have two more R's in there.
You can have R's and rinse and repeat and repeat again.
Rinse and repeat.
The R's never keep ending, so that's why it's just just keep going on. But yeah, absolutely, and that's what everyone's been doing. Essentially, you're just basically completing the reno, and then you're doing it again using the capital that the forced appreciation you were able to create from that previous reno, right?
Yeah. Now that strategy, for all intents and purposes, somewhat gone away now. That was
it doesn't work anymore. Not on small projects anymore.
Yeah. You need some more substantial projects. But anyways, moving along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, here's where it is. I get super excited, right? Like, I'm always excited when we talk about acronyms, right? I get excited about it. And this is another one they have, right? We talked about this a number of times, but building a success of Housing Accelerator Fund. And basically the Housing Accelerator Fund, as we mentioned before, is a program that is used to incentivize municipalities. I love the wording they use here, to essentially remove red tape, right? So that people can build more homes. Like, that's essentially what it is, right? And regardless, I would say, Marcel, this is, to me, probably one of the sticking points, I believe. If we have red tape in place, it will not matter the innovation that's in the marketplace, right? It will not matter.
Right. Yeah. All that savings gets eroded. You're right. Yeah,
that's right. So I like to go back to this and say, you know what? Why put the cart before the horse, right? Let's look at the horse, right? The thing that's pulling this whole thing forward. Let's look at how we can innovate, remove red tape, but innovate in the front end. Let's front load the process. Because if we have the right technology and so forth is in place, Marcel, I can almost certainly say that without any type of modular innovation, 3D printing innovation, panelized innovation, all this other new type of construction methodology that they're going to be funding, if we just simply invest in upgrading building departments, I would say hire new staff, but I'll actually say implement AI that can actually do some of these processes like automatically, then you can have a significantly reduced time frame. And last week on we looked at how, You know, in Ontario in particular, like we have the longest timelines and the highest sort of charges and fees across the entire nation of Canada, and yet still, you know, we get the best of both worlds. And this is not too this is not good, right? We get longest timelines and the most cost. Now, why am I saying that? Is because if we actually implement the technology that would reduce the review time, we can actually save a lot more by having builders move forward projects faster, much faster. And that's what it is I think we should be really focused on. So are we solving the problem here, or are we creating a new problem once we start getting a lot of projects going? We have a machine that can build, you can build 1,000 homes in a short period of time, but we're still waiting for projects to be approved months, years in the making, right?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what this is proposing it's going to do, right? It's going to come in and remove that red tape,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So that's like, you know, this BCH is a big role, and a lot of this that you see here on the document along the right hand side is all the removal of the red tape, right? Reporting for municipalities, eliminate duplicate inspections, you know,
Streamline regulations for
streamline
prefabricated.
regulations, right? Like all of that is all of the, you know, look at accelerate reform to simplify the building code to speed up approvals.
That's
Like all of those things slow down construction as we have it today, right? So that is what this BCH is going to be created to do. It's got a massive role in the housing, you know, in the housing economy. But essentially it comes down to like those three key functions, right? Building affordable at scale, including on public lands, catalyzing the new industry, that's modern methods of construction, modular, prefab, otherwise known, and providing financing, the money to move the affordable builders into production. This is as it stands here, a well-deserved initiative, in my mind. There's obviously some unintended consequences, like we talked about, of you know, in terms of what could happen for housing stock and you know, preconceived notions and all of these things that come along with this scale. But I think, you know, Ron, in order to wrap this up, you know, any final thoughts? I think this is a great initiative overall. Like, I want to stay really close to this and see how this kind of really transpires into action. But I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a very familiar playbook, you know, that we've executed already.
That's right.
I think there's some cautionary stuff as well. Like, you know, does the government need to be a developer, and how much in the developer lane are they going to get? Right. I think that's still to be determined. But overall, I'd say this is a great initiative. What are your thoughts, Ron?
Yeah. Well, my thoughts on this echoes what you just said there. This is a great initiative. Canada needs more homes. And while some of these things certainly seem foreign, as you said, they're basically choosing plays from a playbook that they've used before. I would definitely want to see improvements to that. So, you know, we can't just run the same play. We should sort of modify that old play and see how we might be able to tweak it, make it better. You know, and there's obvious ways to do that. And removing the red tape is probably one of those. And maybe I'll say back when this was first launched, CMHC, maybe there was no red tape, right? The red tape probably didn't exist to the extent that it has today. So if that's the case, then let's remove it. Let's remove the red tape, because that to me is the horse. And then we can start to look at the cart. We can make the cart in a modular warehouse, right? Like, that's fine, right? But let's first tweak the horse, make sure the horse got the right heels on and all the other stuff that goes along with that, right? So with that said, man, I am very happy to see what the government is doing here. I mean, this is the document here. If you guys haven't looked at it, please do. It's Build Canada Homes Market Sounding Guide. Take a look at it. You do have the opportunity to actually have input. Let your voice be heard on where it is housing is going in the next decade at least.
Let's pull that information up. We'll also provide the link. I think it's at the bottom of the document. We will provide that.
That's right.
Information. Once again, another episode of Unpacked.
Yeah.
Where we've brought you another massive change to Canada's housing landscape that's coming. All unpacked in simple terms for you to understand.
That's right.
Ron, take us home.
Yeah, great. Thank you guys for listening to us. You guys are loyal. You have certainly been with us now 12 episodes in, and you guys are still here with us. If you have listened to this recording all the way to the end, I'm your guy, Ronald, your 5-star Michelin multiplex designer, and I'm here with Marcel, my co-host, who is your mortgage money guy, all things lending. Please be sure to give us a thumbs up on this video, like and subscribe to this recording, and leave us a comment. We'll be more than happy to provide you guys with more valuable content. But until then, see you.
See ya.